And Nasreen, as you can see on the slide, is a Civil Spark fellow. So she locally in LA works a lot on solutions that combine really social justice and environmental questions. But especially she was also really active in the Sunrise Movement that pushed for a Green New Deal in the US. So I would just hand it over to Nasreen now. And please tell us more about the Green New Deal there. One more thing, I just want to remind you to just please ask your questions already during the presentations in the chat, and then Chiara will summarize them later and post them to the speakers. And one last thing, after the questions and answers later, we will do a short breakout, so just that you already know what will come. All right, Nasreen, it's your turn.
Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for coming out. I want to start off by saying that we're living at unprecedented times with the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis threat. It is important that we have a conversation about a Green New Deal and mobilize to demand for one. So here in the US, it's clear that there's a huge appetite for comprehensive solutions to address the climate crisis, which presents an opportunity for bold and concrete legislation on climate change, jobs, racial justice, and economic justice. The Green New Deal is a chance to create serious legislation that moves quickly to deeply reduce carbon emissions, create millions of good union jobs, and strengthen those communities facing the worst effects of the climate crisis. The vision of the Green New Deal is to build a nation of 100% clean energy, a just transition to a more democratic economy, and massive public sector investments. Much as green jobs are needed, the vision goes further to include a web of economic policies, such as free higher education, that make possible the huge changes needed to make our country both sustainable and fair. It's not surprising that the boldness of the Green New Deal is associated with a very new member of the House, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who is also always referred to as AOC, and she self-identifies as a Democrat socialist. She's a young Hispanic woman, and being young, Hispanic, and a woman are the three cornerstones of the party's electoral coalition. The issue she ran on was a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, a federal jobs guarantee, abolishing ICE, and all of these issues are animating a new generation of Democrats here in the US. So she's seen as a Wonder Woman of the left, but to the right, she's seen as the Wicked Witch, and she's become the second most talked about politician in America after the president of the United States, and she represents New York's 14th district in Congress. Ocasio-Cortez's dramatic entrance into national politics, along with grassroots support from the Sunrise Movement, gave strong legs to the Green New Deal, even though the concept had been around much earlier and it was like introduced by Bernie Sanders. And even before that, the US Green Party had also urged for a Green New Deal. Senator Bernie Sanders was the first of the 2020 Democratic presidential contenders to back the Green New Deal. And then after a week-long presidential endorsement process, the Sunrise Movement voted resoundingly to endorse Bernie Sanders for President of the United States. So basically, Sunrise is a youth movement to stop climate change and create millions of jobs in the process. Their aim is to build an army of young people to make climate change an urgent priority across America and the corrupting influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics, and elect leaders who stand up for the health and well-being. So more than any other group, the Sunrise Movement put the Green New Deal on the public agenda. Compelled by the climate emergency, its members, mostly in their teens and 20s, have organized protests, but also helped write the Green New Deal. So in 2019, the Sunrise Movement held 200 town hall meetings across the country to promote the Green New Deal. For instance, they organized a sit-in outside of Nancy Pelosi's office in November of 2018. Nancy Pelosi was expected to run for Speaker of the House, and she was likely to win, and she did win. The group taking part in the sit-in were demanding that Democrats draft a climate action plan. So it was depressing and painful time after Super Tuesday here in the US when it became apparent that Sunrise's endorsed candidate, Bernie Sanders, he was not going to be the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. So Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race. But when Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race, Sunrise Movement was not going to like just pack up their bags and leave. And they weren't also a big fan of Joe Biden, who's the Democratic nominee right now. So they stuck around, and they are now vouching for Joe Biden because we really need a Green New Deal, and having Joe Biden, voting for Joe Biden is better than voting for Donald Trump. But especially in recent week with all the wildfires and storms and frankly criminal negligence of Donald Trump denying climate science, many of their members, particularly in the swing states, are recognizing the importance of youth turning out in droves to defeat Trump, because that is the only way that they have the political terrain. They need to make a progress on a Green New Deal. So it's very important for Sunrisers that they do anything they can to get Donald Trump out of the office, even if it means supporting Joe Biden. The key to Sunrise's success is the group's use of both protest organizing and electoral organizing to build political power. Sunrise's rise to political prominence has been punctuated with moments like that sit-in outside Nancy Pelosi's office. They turned civil disobedience into viral social media campaigns that have ultimately led to actual political traction. Twitter is an important tool for the group and has been key to shaming elected officials and mobilizing young voters. They continuously host online trainings and webinars. They employ the theory of change to build people power, political power, and political alignment. So people power is large, vocal, and active base of popular support. Political power is credible path to victory around which to organize and mobilize critical mass and put pressure on decision makers. And finally, political alignment is grouping of political and social forces that align together, establishing a new common sense and advancing an agenda for society based on shared visions and values. And that's it for me.